After delaying his planned tariffs on Mexico and Canada by 30 days, President Trump now says he'll impose reciprocal tariffs on several countries next week. Now, that's a pledge that frankly rattled some global markets, but we're still wondering today, what might that mean for the U.S. economy? Let's bring in Peter Morici, the former International Trade Commission chief. He's now a professor at the University of Maryland. Peter, there's so much we can talk about, but let's begin by explaining for the folks at home, what is this idea of reciprocal tariffs, and how would you explain what that might mean, not just to us, but to the countries that may be hit by them?
Well, typically, the United States charges fairly low tariffs compared to the people we trade with. For example, India has much higher tariffs than we do. What we would do with reciprocal tariffs, instead of charging all countries the same rate, we'd level up to what they charge us. So you're going to charge 15% on our cars, we'll charge you 15% on your cars, that kind of thing.
Well, let me ask you, though, in the case of Canada, people have been wondering, certainly if you watch the CBC or any of the Canadian broadcasters, I wouldn't say they're in a panic, but I would suggest that they're massively concerned about what the impact of, say, 25% tariffs might mean to their economy. And yet you've described to me that much of our trade with them is actually duty-free. Why all the hullabaloo about what that might do to them, and how might that even help us?
Well, we've been duty-free in the automobile sector since the 60s, and we've been duty-free in the entire economy, except for a few agricultural products, since the 80s. And as a consequence, you got to remember, Canada is a country that's 5,000 miles long, but only about 200 miles wide in terms of economics, in terms of where stuff happens. So they've very heavily integrated north to south with us because of these free trade arrangements. A tariff would completely upset and disturb that. My feeling is there should be some sort of accommodation we can come to with the Canadians about areas of friction. Whatever border issues we have, whatever drug issues, it should be possible. The thing is, you have to remember, Trudeau is kind of like a New York City mayor. Not the one we have now, but others that we have had, or the New York City prosecutors. They take a very, promiscuous look towards people that smuggle. Similarly, or any kind of crime, it's a social problem. Likewise, the Mexicans, they basically have let the gangs run wild, and now they've lost control of their country because they've become more rich and powerful than the government.
Yeah, and that's certainly the case, absolutely. While we're talking about tariffs, I do want to also mention something that sort of plays off that. Jobs, obviously, that seems to be the reason the president is really thinking about tariffs, not just as a moneymaker, but also to protect American jobs and maybe even grow American jobs along the way. As we show the folks at home, the jobs report for January, unemployment rate 4%. That's still historically terrific. 143,000 jobs added. But I must say, Peter, I keep watching the revisions, and they're stunning if you really sort of go back. I think now 17 of the past 25 jobs reports, they've been revised downward. Why does this keep happening? And is that just a bit of sleight of hand by the Biden administration?
No, it's not a sleight of hand by the Biden administration or any prior administrations. The monthly jobs numbers we get are based on a limited survey taken the week of the 12th of the month, wherever the 12th falls. And it's increasingly difficult to get businesses to fill out those surveys. There's a lot of estimating involved. As time goes by, we get more precise numbers based on larger samples and so forth. And for some reason, there's a tendency for it to be biased up. Now, I would point this out, that through both the Trump and Biden administrations, we have created many more jobs than was anticipated. And the economy, since Donald Trump first became president in 2016, has grown at 2.5% a year. During the Obama years, it was 1.9%. Because at least, even Mr. Biden, they made jobs a focus. Mr. Obama made regulation a focus.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is true. Lastly, in the 30 seconds or so we have left, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about Fed rates. Okay, I understand it's early in the game. The president's only been back in office for a short amount of time. Will Mr. Powell leave rates as they are, or might they trickle lower?
I don't think he can lower them, and it's not the tariffs, because right now we've added tariffs on China, but rather it's the service sector. Remember, there's no tariffs on services. That's right. And inflation is staying stubbornly above 4% there, and that's more than half the economy. And until they solve that riddle, And there we go back to jobs. The participation rate is too low in America because we pay people not to work. Where else in the world, you know, we give food stamps to able-bodied adults with no children. That's absurd.
Yeah,
Who don't work.
Yeah, I think the last time I checked, and I can double check my numbers, it was somewhere in the mid 60s, low 60% for the workforce participation rate. Got to get that way back up closer to 70. I know that's a pipe dream right now. Peter, so great to have you with us on a weekend. I know you're busy. Fear the turtle. Thank you, Professor. We appreciate your time today.
Take care.